My name is Shanae Varela. I am the internship coordinator for OC Biotech Ed. And some of you guys are alumni. Some of you guys just found out about our program. And I just wanted to have a quick overview to discuss what our program is like and basically go over what we try to do for us, for our students, essentially. So we're a collaborative between 14 community colleges. We're between Fullerton College, Santa Ana College, Santiago Canyon, and Irvine Valley. So we're all throughout Orange County, and which are laboratory-based courses and lecture courses, about 12 to 13 units. And those classes are basically your first foundation for trying to gather those laboratory skills that you would need to be in the biotech industry. We also have our second certificate, which is our second tier, the Biomanufacturing Technician Certificate. That's 11 units, including your Biotech Lab Assistant Certificate as well. With that, you're able to, work in different fields. You gain a little bit more advanced skill set. And you're able to work in the biomanufacturing field. And then we have our General Biotechnology Technician Certificate, which is basically stackable certificates from the first two, and then you add on a few more units, about 13 to 16 units, and it totals out to about 36, 40 units for our program. The certificates, you're able to get all three of them and put it towards your associate's degree. But this is an example of our Biotech Lab Assistant Certificate. So this certificate, as you can see, is 3 different courses in a lab course. So we have Biology 190, which is Intro to Biotech, which is 3 units. We also have Biology 190 Lab, which is Intro to Biotech Lab 1 unit. We also have Biology 191, which is our basic skills course, which is a little bit more advanced. And then we have our Intro to Chemistry or General Chemistry course that you can take as well. And each of our campuses host these classes throughout the year. You can take them fall, winter, spring, summer. So you really have a wide array of semesters to really take these courses. So you can take these biotech courses. Essentially, a lot of different students can take these courses, whether you're in high school, you can do these as a dual enrollment student or concurrent enrollment student. Students in 9th through 12th grade receive these free community college classes throughout their time. So if you know anyone who's interested in taking these courses, I really suggest that they take these courses and really take advantage of them while they're in high school. It's a great opportunity to learn. You could also do it during your undergraduate career if you're attending a UC, Cal State private school or out-of-state school. And then you could also start your undergraduate career at one of our 4 campuses. If you're a high school student coming out, your first year is completely free through the California Promise. Also, our classes are very low cost, so it's a really good opportunity. We also have a low-cost Bachelors in Science transfer program, so you can do your associates in biotechnology at any one of these 4 campuses and transfer to our partner school down in Encinitas through Mira Costa College. So essentially, you do 2 years at the community college and you transfer to Mira Costa, which is also a community college, but they offer a low-cost bachelor's degree. I believe the total for the last 2 years at Mira Costa is roughly $6,000 to $7,000 for the tuition. And now we're going to talk about our internship program. So our internship program, in order to be eligible, is to essentially, all you have to do is complete the first certificate. So if you wanted to just complete those 3 to 4 classes for the Biotech Lab Assistant Certificate, you can, and you would be automatically eligible for any one of our internships. You can complete the internship application, which I can give you. We have you do the resume and a cover letter, and you also need a faculty recommendation from a biotech professor. We also provide professional development and resources. We provide resources for resume and cover letter writing and editing. We help you figure out how to write that perfect cover letter to send to a company. We can do mock interviews with students, individual and panel style, so that way you understand and know how it is when you're going into these interviews. We assist you with searching for biotech jobs. We also have assistance with applying to these jobs, and we also have partnerships with local biotech companies. And I just wanted to show you this quick graphic really quick because the biotechnology field is humongous. There are so many different fields and facets of biotechnology. It's a great field to go into it. You don't necessarily have to do laboratory work. You could be interested in business and management and sales, marketing. There's a lot of different places that you can go to in biotechnology, and that's the great component of it, that there's so many facets of it. So that's just a brief overview. If no one has any questions, then we can go ahead and jump right into our session with our biotech panelists. Hi.
Hello.
Nathaniel Hens. How are you today?
I am doing great. I hope everyone else is doing great too.
It's so great to have you with us today. We wanted to really highlight the biotech industry and what you've done. So, just please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So, I usually, when I talk about myself, I like to give a little bit of early background, so you can kind of get an understanding of how I became what I am today. Back in my early years in high school, I was very interested in the sciences, biology, the natural sciences, and chemistry. And throughout the course of my I guess just college, I was originally going to start in this. Back in the day. It was a new field of study. It was called computer science. I quickly realized that wasn't for me. That was my very first year in college, and I started to panic a little bit, and I fell back on. I started thinking about what I really love about like a major in college, and I said, well, I love chemistry. Why don't I start with that? So that's how I really got involved in chemistry. And you might be wondering, how did I get into the biotech industry from chemistry? I was never interested in just pure chemistry. It was a necessary a stepping stone. But when I really got into graduate school, that's when I realized this bridge between biotech and chemistry. And in fact, my area of specialty was bioanalytical, and I used molecular biology at the time at the interface of analytical chemistry. So from there, once I graduated, I got a postdoc at Eli Lilly, and I'd be lying to you if I told you that I set out to work in a pharmaceutical industry. I remember at the time I was applying to any job and every job related to chemistry, and I ended up getting a postdoc at Eli Lilly, and that's how I got into the pharmaceutical industry. And there I was actually developing assays for the drug discovery work that was going on. And then I moved down to North Carolina with Eli Lilly, worked for them full time, and got into the automation realm. We did something called high throughput screening, and we used a lot of molecular biology within that field to create the assays that we were looking for drugs to help various diseases. So throughout that part of that a series of my career, there was this intersection. Again, it was analytical and a little bit of automation and biotech. And then I went on to full automation after Eli Lilly. I was working at Bristol Myers Squibb for a couple of years up in Connecticut. And we didn't like it up there, so we hightailed it back to North Carolina, which is where I am now. And then I ended up getting a job at North Carolina State University teaching bioanalytical to our biomanufacturing training and education center. And then after about 11 years of that, I had also been working with a small company called Artel. They're based out of Maine, and they offered me a full-time position about a year and a half. Actually, it's almost 2 years ago. They offered me a full-time position to bring some of the life science sector back into their business, which is mostly metrology and calibrations. That served the life science sector, including biotech. So it's a long, winding story, and I didn't do it on purpose. I just kind of followed a path, quite frankly. But there was definitely a science involved. In fact, I would say I was working in the laboratory right up until I left North Carolina State. So I taught there, and I had a laboratory, and I designed assays and executed them, and then consulted with some other groups. It's just really been in the last 2 years I haven't worked in the laboratory. And now, as Janae mentioned, biotech encompasses a wide range of topics, career paths. So right now, I'm more in the application sector for my technology, and we serve the biotech community. I'm out there working with companies. I'm trying to educate them on how our technology benefits them. So I'm not working in the laboratory right now, although I miss it like crazy. So I'd say my role right now is probably more in the business development sort of path.
That's great. That's awesome. It's really good to hear about your experience and how much time you really dedicated to science and different fields of it. Did you know you always wanted to be a STEM major going into college?
The short answer is yes, and I have to be honest. We didn't even have this term STEM back when when I went to college, but yes, that's exactly what it was. When I started, I knew it back when I was in high school. In fact, probably even middle school. It's just science has been around my life always. My parents were in the sciences. My family, not that they all have careers in it now. But when I first got into college, again, I was going to go into the computer science field, and I took one semester, and then I quickly realized that really wasn't for me. And then I ended up going to chemistry. I took a general chem in my spring semester, my first year, and that's what sealed the deal for me. And I knew it even before that, but that's what sealed it for me. And then I stayed with the chemistry at the time. And my interest was really around analytical chemistry, instrumental analysis, quantitative analysis, that type of stuff. It wasn't necessarily synthetic chemistry, although there was some of that was very interesting. So I had a math minor in college, chemistry major, and I had to take some physics courses, and then the normal the English and literature and arts and that type of stuff.
So a good like a good variety of different things to take, right?
Absolutely. I think it's even more exciting now because when I was in school, the branches of, let's say, chemistry and biology, and in fact, I don't even remember that they had molecular biology as a discipline. They used it in the biology, but and back then there was a lot of these distinct fields that one could study. Nowadays, and rightfully so, there's so much intersection between these different fields. Now you could actually study chemistry, but get a lot of experience in molecular biology or even microbiology, or vice versa. If you're in those fields, you could actually get a lot of experience in these other. It's basically very, very cross-disciplinary. And I think people recognized over the last couple of decades that that's really the reality. We don't have these distinct fields. It's more there is a cross-section between them all.
Yeah, and I've noticed that a lot as well, that there's been a lot more integration in science lately, and I think that's great to be able to have the interdisciplinary like that. What do you feel is something that changed your mind about the STEM field, and how do you feel like that led to where you are today?
Well, I'm not sure anything changed my mind because, like I said, that was probably part of my DNA. Was sciences. I'm a scientist at heart, no matter what I do. My hobbies at home. Well, clearly you can see the instruments back there, and that has not really the science part. But what you don't know is, I do brewing, I do fermentations at home, and a lot of that's science. And for me, the field is what has changed, and I think it makes it more interesting. It is more cross-disciplinary, and I used to, when I had a lot of students that came through my lab when I was teaching at NC State. I would have people say, well, I don't want to get a degree in biology. And I always told them, I say, it doesn't really matter if you get a degree in biology or chemistry. when you go to graduate school, you can make your projects be whatever they want. In reality, it's never just pure biology. It's never just pure chemistry. You can make it that way if you want, but if you want to, to get the right projects. So I think the way the STEM has really come along is it's allowed people to realize that there's no one dedicated field, unless you want it to be that. If you want to study theoretical chemistry, you can do it. But if you're not really sure and you like a lot of aspects of it, like I did, I was taking different courses, and I took a radiochemistry course when I was in graduate school because I thought I was going to study nuclear chemistry and get into that field. And, similar story to my computer science. I took one course and realized that's not for me. And then I found my graduate advisor. He did this. It was very cross-disciplinary. It was biology, molecular biology, and analytical chemistry. So bioanalytical. And that's what really got me excited. So I think that's how things have sort of evolved. There's a lot more interplay between the two. And that's what makes it exciting, quite frankly. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that's one reason why I really was interested in biotechnology as well. And now that you're in the biotech industry, what's made you stay?
There's too many cool things going on, and I want to be part of it, quite frankly. And I know it sounds incredibly cheesy, but if you think about what is going on now, the agriculture industry, the waste industry, the medical industry, the medicines, pharmaceuticals, pretty much everything that we do, the food, everything that we deal with, there's biotech has an intersection, and it really works with everything. Heck, there was a company that I worked with a little bit while I was teaching at NC State. They were making bricks. They still do. It's called Biomace, and they're making bricks out of bacteria. And and that's a way of it's a low energy renewable resource versus the traditional fire kilned bricks. So it's a really interesting, and there's so many other examples, but that's the part I find so fascinating is we live today in a time, and we have things going on right now that you couldn't have imagined 20 or 25 years ago. I know I didn't, but now what's really cool about it is that it really expands your horizons if you think about it right.
Yeah, I think so too, and that makes a lot of sense of how much change has occurred throughout the biotech industry throughout the years. So I guess my next question would be, how do you think the biotech industry will change in the next 5 to 10 years, especially with everything going on with COVID?
I think if there's a couple things. I think COVID is bad, and it's really done a number on not just the U.S. but the world. But I think out of that, I would say there's a couple of interesting things that are affecting the biotech world, and well, not just the biotech, but everything. But it's the remoteness. We have accessed. I mean, just think about this course right now. We're able to do this. We've had the technology for years, but nobody would have dreamed of doing this a couple of years ago, or we would have thought it would be too difficult. This kind of forces into that. It's really amping up our game in the virtual reality industry to be able to offer laboratory courses in the virtual realm. I mean, that's not here yet, but it's coming. So this is, the COVID has prepared us now to work in a more remote world. We've got to get better at it. But on the biotech side of things, I would say that it is really opening up. There's a couple of things. There's one that's the what I would call it's the personalized medicine. And we've all been hearing about all of these tests going on, getting tested for COVID, whether you have it existing or whether you've got the antibodies in your body, all of the errors in those tests. And then people are trying to understand the effect of COVID on different patients because we still don't really have a clear understanding. We have a broad general idea of the symptoms, and we don't even know how it affects us really. So where all that's leading the biotech industry, I believe it's what I would call more of this personalized medicine. And what that means is now we can start thinking about analyzing me or you or somebody else individually to come up with a diagnosis, and then eventually come up with tailored medicines. And that, so for the biotech part, that opens up all this on the analysis side. We have these miniaturized workflows. So that's microfluidics, where we're able to take a drop of blood or saliva, put it onto a chip, and then do a full analysis. The core technologies are there, but they're not all quite put together, but that's coming, and that's the exciting part for me.
I think that's really exciting. It's great to see that, we can actually advance in this time, and we can create, new avenues and platforms for our industry to really thrive through this. And I think this really segues into my next question, which would be, how do us as biotech students make that difference or get into the field so that way we can make that change?
A couple of things I would say to get into this field, or if you're in the field, how to really propel yourself is, if you like the field of biotech, it's got challenges, and if you follow the path and you take courses, you're going to take some challenging courses. I remember in my chemistry at the time, physical chemistry, that was the one that was the hard part for everybody. And anytime you heard the word physical chemistry, people shuddered. I knew of colleagues that dropped out of chemistry altogether because of that. But, what I would say, my point with that is persevere, stick with it. You're going to hear, you might have to take some math classes if that's not your jam, but biology is your jam. Just trust yourself and take these math classes, take the physical chemistry class. That all makes you tough, just because and I was not a straight A student. I'm not going to tell you that with a straight face. I was an average student in undergrad. I got a little better in graduate school, but I wasn't the top performing student. But what I did excel at was research. That was the area that I absolutely loved, and I would say that I was actually a very good researcher and then writer. Writing up the papers and such. So, everybody has their stumbling blocks, but if you recognize that, you go for it, and don't let that stuff stop you. The other thing that I would say is, find an area that interests you. Don't just do it because you think it's going to be a moneymaker. You've got to be vested in it from your heart. And that I told you earlier, I love science. I probably always have, and I didn't know it in an early stage, but I knew it when I was in high school for sure, and probably middle school. But follow your heart on this. If you're excited about it, that's half the battle. And again, don't worry about if you have some stumbling blocks along the way. It doesn't matter. Go for it. And I will tell you why. Because every time you graduate from high school, you get on to college. Nothing matters in high school anymore. When you finish college, you get into graduate school. Undergrad doesn't matter anymore. When you get your postdoc or you get a job, none of that stuff matters. Your education does. Your experiences matter, but grades and classes, the further away they are, the less they matter. So don't worry about. I shouldn't say this because all the professors are going to kill me for this, but don't worry about grades too much. Worry about learning. That's the important part is learning. And take opportunities to get internships, do it, and ask about them. I had an internship program in my lab at NC State. And I was worried when I first started thinking about it, how am I going to get this kicked off? I got to find students. But the coolest thing was the students that I loved working with were the ones that came to me and said, hey, do you have any opportunities? So don't be afraid to ask about opportunities. And I'm not talking about even just college, but the companies. There's a lot of companies out there, small biotech companies that have internship programs. I know North Carolina, where I live, there's a lot of opportunities. I know You guys out on the West Coast, California, there's a lot of biotech going on out there. Very clearly, but they have internship programs. So don't be afraid to ask about those. And, and this is coming from me from experience. Don't be afraid. And I was back when I was going into college or graduate school, I was afraid that I didn't know enough. So that actually stopped me from asking about internships, or even when they were presented to me, I felt like I wasn't good enough. So I never applied. But having my experience at NC State as a faculty member, I had a lot of students, and some of them actually told me, I don't know if I'm smart enough or have enough experience. And then what I did is I started talking to them. I interviewed them, talked to them, and we didn't even talk about grades necessarily. It's about what are your interests, what are your goals, what do you want to do, and then go for it. So there was I had a lot of interns that happened just like that, and they came to me. So don't be afraid to ask. You'll have a lot more willing mentors out there than you realize. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
Well, it was a long question as well, but yeah, I think that's a big thing about our students is being able to ask those questions or trying to, make that move in order to advance themselves. So I guess that segues into my next question was, did you have any mentors in your undergraduate or graduate career, or even now, that you feel have really positively influenced you to be a better scientist?
So I would say, so I hate to say, I had good teachers in high school. I had good teachers in college, but I wouldn't say that they were necessarily in a mentorship capacity. And that was 100% on me, because I wasn't one of the students that spent a lot of time and asked questions. So I took a lot of the classes. I never really asked questions in class, and it wasn't because I was so darn smart. I already told you, I was just an average student, but it's because I didn't feel like I was going to benefit from that. I was probably a little shy. But when I got into graduate school, that's where things were different. My first mentor was my advisor, my graduate advisor, Dr. Bacchus, and that was a number of years ago. He was a good scientist. I already loved science, so I didn't need that. But what he really helped me with was the process of becoming a better scientist, asking questions, designing experiments to answer those questions, and then create a new avenue. And then the other part of that was he was an excellent writer, a very excellent technical writer. And during that time, he taught me how to read, not read, but he taught me how to write technical documents, papers. And I know it sounds kind of corny. It's like we all know how to write, but it was a different skill set. And he spent the time with me. And he did it with all of his other students too, but he spent the time explaining why he made the changes. I remember the first paper I turned into him to get published. It was dripping in red ink. It was bleeding big time. It was, and when I looked at that, because I thought I did a pretty good job, my heart just about exploded. It's like, this is not good. I'm not cut out for this. But we sat down and we talked about all of the changes in there. And for me, a good mentor is working with you and understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are and working on the areas that you can improve. So when I that was one experience, and then another experience was when I was working at Eli Lilly down here in North Carolina, the high throughput screening. My old boss. He was an analytical chemist like myself, a couple of years older than me. But I remember as a mentor, he used to, every time I came to him with an idea, and I ran the new technologies group under him. I came to him with a new idea, and he was a naysayer. He said no to everything. He said it can't be done. It's too expensive. Da da da. I mean, I was always hit with that front. But in doing so, what he ended up doing was he helped me become a better internal salesperson, if you will. So if I'm trying to convince somebody to explore a new technology, let's think about this from, because I'm a very positive person, probably a little too optimistic sometimes. And what he did was he helped me think about the realistic viewpoint of things. And most of the times when I ended up going back to him after these no's and it's too expensive and it's, we would actually talk about these things, and he would cause me to, he forced me to sort of think about them from more of a business perspective. And then a lot of times he would change his mind. So that, I love that about him, in that, he was a naysayer in the beginning, but he would always listen to me. And other people too. So that was, and I've had a number of really good mentors throughout the years. So it's, it's about finding somebody that's excited for you and that is looking for opportunities for you to grow. That's, and sometimes you can ask somebody to be a mentor, but don't just say, be a mentor to me, or will you be a mentor? It's like, what is it you're looking for? What is it that person can help you with? That's what you really need to. I've never been a big fan personally of just reaching out and saying, hey, would you be my mentor? I always latch on to somebody. It's like, I like the way you do things. I like the way you write. I like the way you're organized. I like the way you run a business. And then I try to align myself with them. That's how I've always worked with a mentorship. And I've been a little bit, as a mentor to students or other people, I've been a little bit more aware of that, and I try to work with them a little bit. Because some people will ask for a mentor, some people won't. But I think it's if we're in a position as a mentor, it's to help people. Sometimes people just don't like to ask. So.
And do you find that it's easy for a student to reach out to someone like that? Like, what would be your best advice for a student who is looking for that type of mentorship, especially for students who are coming from a background where no one in their family is STEM related? So what kind of best piece of advice would you give someone?
If you're just completely new to the field, the way I would go about this is, and I think even mentorship programs would tell you, find it, it's the area of interest. So I'm going to give you an example. I've had students that I've worked with in the past. They came into my office and said to me, Nat, hey, I don't have any experience working in a lab. Do you have anything for me? And then we start talking. And then you come to find out this person is interested in the field. They don't know what they want, but they've started that conversation. And some of them know exactly they want to work in the biomanufacturing or QC, or they want to do something. They just want a lab experience, and that's perfectly fine. But you have to know what it is you sort of want. And I say that intentionally, sort of, because sometimes if you say, I want to work in industry because I want to get some experience and I want to learn a little bit about a GMP, good manufacturing practices world, or I just want to work in a laboratory and understand from an industry perspective how to do things. Or if you don't even know, and like, let's say a neighbor, you may have a neighbor that is a professor or works in one of these companies. They don't even have to be a director or anything. Just, they're a couple of years older than you and they're working in industry, and you want to know a little bit more about what they do. Ask them. Find out about what it is they do. Because what your goal is when you're looking for a mentor is to get that it's to help you get to that next step, and it's about propelling you and finding alignment. So if you don't have parents or siblings that are in the STEM field, or aunts and uncles, if they're all business or in the agriculture, farmers, or that's okay. I've worked with so many people like that, first time STEM people, and it's about asking and trying to find out about what you don't know. And it's okay to ask. That's the part that I need to really strongly emphasize here. It is okay to say, I don't know about this field. Can you help me? People love that in general. There are a few people that don't, but by far the majority of people out there would absolutely love to help in some way. They'll answer questions.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, just reaching out and asking for that assistance could really make a difference in your career path. So do you think that there are any potential misconceptions that students may have about the biotech field? I know a lot of times students think the word biotechnology is very big and broad. Do you think there's any misconceptions that we could potentially, get rid of about the field?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is just, it's about taking classes in the biotech. A misconception out there is it's too hard. I jotted that down. It's like, when I started thinking about it from my perspective as a student, it's like, oh, it's too hard. I don't want to do that. I can't do that. What you have to do is eliminate those I can't and it's too hard from your vocabulary. It is hard. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but my gosh, it'll make you a stronger person, and it'll be in a field. Once you get going in there, you'll realize it's not that bad because you take baby steps. That's what the classes are for. But I think some of the other misconceptions are out there that if I go into biotech, I'm going to be working in a lab all day long, every day, and I'm going to be creating genetic mutants, flesh-eating plants or whatever. It's not about that at all. I'm sure there's some crazy people that are doing that, but I'd say the biotech, and I think one of your slides earlier, it was remarkable because it does encompass a whole lot of stuff, and I think that's a big misconception, that is you're just going to be working in a lab, because some people don't want to work in a lab for a career. And you know what? That's actually okay, because you can be a business manager. You can get into business development. You can get into becoming a patent attorney. And these are areas that have nothing. You can get into environmental health and safety, even with the biotech background. There's programming. I've known so many people that had no formal training in programming for like data analysis, and I worked with them throughout both my jobs at Eli Lilly and Bristol Myers Squibb. There are people that are writing software. They actually have PhDs in chemistry, or maybe they've got a BS in biology, but they've found this new area of interest and it really took off, but they're working in the industry. So it really is truly, you can work in the biotech industry and not have to work in the lab, or you can work in the lab. Like I said, I'm probably older than most people that I'm talking to today, but I worked in the lab up until I started at Artel. So it was just about a year and a half ago.
That's amazing, and that's why I really enjoy the world of biotechnology, because like you said, you could be a patent attorney, you can go into business, sales, marketing. There are
Absolutely
so many facets that include biotechnology. You don't necessarily have to work in a laboratory setting the rest of your time in your career. So for students who are thinking about like their next step after, wherever they're at, what do you think the best resource would be for them for a next step?
Well, you're doing it right now, all of you students. I mean, you're taking this session here, and you're listening and finding out. But in terms of resources, one thing, go to your community colleges, your colleges. There's a lot of, you can just these days you can just get on the old interweb and do some searches, and that's really easy. But also look at your biotech industry organization. I live in North Carolina. We have a big biotech program, just like California does, and there's some central sites. Ours is the North Carolina Biotech Center, and it's a nonprofit organization through the state of North Carolina. I'd be willing to bet there are multiples of those in California, in the different regions where, pretty much San Francisco, San Diego, LA are all these areas where the biotech hotspots are. I would say that there are probably some some publicly available information on those various sites. And people like Janae can help you find that. But I would, those are great resources. Like ours, they talk about internships. I mentioned that, and they have job postings. They have a lot of information, networking events. That's something we haven't talked about, but that's really around this mentorship. Go for networking events. And I know it sounds kind of scary for some of you. It's like networking. I'm a scientist. I don't like people. It's not about going and talking to people. It's about if you have these, and most of them don't even cost anything. They're free. They're free to students at least. And you can go to these biotech meetings and you can just sit back and listen to what's going on. And then, that's when you start branching out and start talking to people. But again, some of these networking events, they're small trade shows. I know there's one out on the West Coast that's down in San Diego. It's the Laboratory Robotics Interest Group. I understand we're talking about biotech here, but the Laboratory Robotics Interest Group services that whole biotech industry. It's centered around automation, and and there's a number of others like around here locally. We have so many they're networking groups that are through that nonprofit organization. They're under that, but there's a ton of information out there.
A lot of resources, I agree, all over the state, even within our own program. We provide, those different resources for you guys as well. So, a lot of really good advice today. Is there anything else that you would like to add as we wrap up the end of this session before questions and answers?
Well, again, I would say that for us in this industry, and for the students that are listening to this right now, obviously you're interested, but again, just don't let little road bumps get in your way. Take these classes and do it. You're going to hear, from other students, oh, that class is hard, or whatever. Oh, I have to write a lot, and I'm not good at it. So you learn all of that. I promise you. If I can do it, you can do it. Trust me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we are going to stop the recording in this part of the session.
Recording has stopped.
And now we're going to open up the floor for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, please put up your reaction, like raising your hand or anything, and you guys can ask Nathaniel any questions.
I didn't have any questions. Everything was pretty straightforward, but I did want to thank you for all the positive comments towards all the hard classes that bio majors are constantly pursuing, because we all know that they can be a pain in the butt. So it was nice to see it in a positive light. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you noticing that. And I'm not saying that because I was told to. Janae didn't coach me. I say this because I've lived it. And when I used to teach, and nothing would drive me crazier than when a student would say, I'm thinking about dropping my major because of this class or whatever. And it's like, just do it. I've encouraged so many people that came out of my internship program to go to graduate school. And it was probably a dozen students that I've had. And not everybody's cut out for graduate school, and not everybody wants to go to graduate school, but what I would say is some of the students that I had out of the ones that I've encouraged to go to graduate school, told them, it's tough. Make no mistake about it. Only one of them was going to do it on their own and didn't need any encouragement. But I had a number of students that went on to grad school, and guess what? They got out and they survived the ordeal. So I'm always for that. It's like nobody told me no on stuff. Like my parents weren't, they never said, oh, don't do this, but and they never really encouraged me a whole lot, but I had good professors that encouraged me. And that's what I've always remembered. It's like some of those professors that you've had that, or even a boss that's very encouraging, trying you to, getting you to do something different, even though it may be difficult, because you will grow from it. So anyway, that's just the way I feel.
Well, thank you again.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
I had a quick one.
Feel free.
Sorry about that. When we're going on WebAdvisor to register for these classes, would it just be under biology for the course, or is there a specific tab that we have to go through?
What campus are you at?
I'm at SAC and SCC.
Okay, yeah. So if you go on WebAdvisor, you can just look up biology, the subject, and all of our biotech classes, they're separated by campus. You can see all the biotech classes with those numbers. So Bio 190 and 191, you can see those courses on our WebAdvisor. Mm-hmm.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
I would just like to say thank you. I actually leaning more towards trying to pursue a nursing degree, but I definitely thought this was interesting, and just really wanted to say thank you for the encouragement as far as mentioning not letting those little roadblocks get in the way. Definitely when you said that, I think you've encountered some students, or even in your own kind of journey through, your own education, your own career, believing that you're not smart enough. I know I definitely attest to that. So I will for sure keep that in mind as I.
Yeah, you just keep going forward, and there's nothing wrong with the nursing. I mean, you're going to take some science classes to get it, to go through that program. So you don't have to. Just because we're talking today doesn't mean you have to go into biotech. It's the sciences. To me, that's the more important part, is the sciences, because we just need good scientists out there, and I think there's so many good people and they don't realize it. So I'm happy that you found a path that you want. So that's cool.
I was, I really admired the, how you talked about, just having that love for science, and especially, I know grades are important, but, trying to make sure that we do learn along the way.
Students used to hate me when I would come into the first day of class and I said, look, I don't care about your grades. And they would all look at me and they're like, well, it's not on your GPA. And I said, I know. But seriously, my goal when I taught it was about learning. So some people, if you put the work into it, like I would rather have a student, like even now, as if I were to hire somebody, I would rather have somebody that has average grades and that has worked at internships and has a passion for what it is that they're doing, to apply for a job, versus a straight A student who doesn't care. I would rather in a heartbeat have somebody that's got average grades. Now, if it's equal footing, you take the person that's probably got the higher grades or whatever. But that's not the only thing. It's really about the experiences, and it's about attitude. And when I say experiences, it doesn't necessarily have to be like an internship per se. Like if you do a lot of and I'm making this up. Actually, I'm not really, because I've had students do this before. They're writing marketing materials for a small company that they're working for. It has nothing to do with science, but they've got a writing. They've been designing and writing and trying to. They're a technical communicator. They've been really good, and I've brought some people on board just because of that. So it's really about how you present yourself and your experiences. I think the experiences will get you a lot further than grades. And I'm not saying ignore grades. I'm not saying that at all. But they will get you a lot. Experiences will get you a lot further than you think.
Well, thank you for.
Absolutely.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I first of all, my name is Bao. I really love research, and then I feel like the whole time at school, I would rather have my professor tell me to write a research paper than actually than everything else. So I was wondering if I like researching so much, what position can I have at a company? Like I don't know what to call it to, and I have trouble telling my parents, like what am I do? Say I'm like I don't know if I should call.
Well, it's really it's called there's any number of names for it, but it's research scientist. And it can be under any like subheading. It might be a technical research scientist, associate research scientist, assistant. There's any number of things. But what I would say is if you have an idea of where you want to go, let's say you want to do some really cool research, but you're not exactly sure, I would say consider, first of all, take research opportunities in undergrad as much as you can, since you love it. That's the way I was. And and I would suggest thinking about graduate school, because graduate school will give you a whole other level, and you can get a master's degree, you can get a PhD, or you can do a master's in one field, PhD in another. I mean, there's any number of combinations, but that's when you're really, that's like I did undergraduate research projects, and I have to be honest with you, I mean, it helped me, but it was nothing compared to graduate school. That's where I really learned research and working in the lab. And that's the other thing that you should probably think about is it the lab that you love, or is it doing research? And there's two different things, because if it's lab, if you want to work in a lab, there's any number of avenues there, and you can get those jobs right out of school. If you want to do research, and that's where you're designing experiments, and you're interpreting your own data, maybe even with a team, and then you're writing up the research in terms of papers, summaries, whatever, technical reports. That I would say, I mean, you can do it out of undergrad, but I would say if you really want to propel yourself and become a leader in the field, think about graduate school, PhD. That'll get you pretty far. And then once you do that, then you may do a postdoc. And I'm going to stop everybody right now, because I know a lot of people are thinking, it's like, well, when I finish undergrad, I'm done with school. That's, what I would say is think it's really, it doesn't take, it takes a couple of years for a master's, about 4 or 5 years for PhD. Yes, it does. But if you go right at it, right from school, right from undergraduate, it goes by in a blink of an eye. It goes by so quick. I'm not kidding you, and you're not going to waste your time. But if you think you're going to finish now, get a job, work in the research realm, and then maybe go back to school, you can do it. And I've known people that have done it, but it's a lot more difficult to do that. So just you got to kind of follow sort of your path.